Welcome to the setup analysis featuring the Dunlop Srixon Revo CX 2.0, and in this racket we've got it strung up once again with Polystar Strike 1.25 in the mains, and in the crosses it's strung up with ISOspeed V18, so that's the 1.12 gauge. So that's a hybrid setup we've used in the past. It's just the racket that is the main change. And one of the things I was looking for from this racket was an increase in height and line control. We were meant to achieve that with the addition of twist weight alongside an increase in the vibration frequency to 157 from 155. But yeah, so I'm looking to those statistics to improve that particular aspect of the setup. And in this first practice set that you can see right now, it was played on the clay courts. A little bit of drizzle, but slow, as you would expect from a clay court. And in this particular test, I did make the mistake of putting a dampener on. I should have, if I was going to do something like this, I should have placed the dampener on the bottom of the frame rather than place it where I eventually did, which was on the bottom cross string. So I was jamming both the main strings and the cross strings, and that proved to add way too much shot speed in order for the length to be controllable. That was a mistake on my part. I thought that we wasn't going to experience such an increase in shot speed, but in hindsight, looking at the shot speed that was recorded on the racket recommender, it was 65.6 miles an hour, so that's quite a big increase from the Metallics 2 that was recorded at 64.2 miles an hour. So yeah, I'm looking at that and thinking, why did I do such a significant change to the setup? I should have just tested it in stock form really, but hey, that's me taking unnecessary risks. But yeah, as you will see from a few points here, the lack of length control really did play a role in the amount of increased unforced errors in my game, and that is completely unacceptable. It's through no fault of the string setup really, because we've proven that it has a lot of length control in the previous setup. I just really was looking to improve both the height and line control, like I said before, and not just with the twist weight. I wanted to take it a step further by jamming the strings with a dampener, but of course it didn't pay off. And of course there was an increase in the height and line control, but when you combine that with the absolute uncontrollable level of shot speed from this particular setup, it's a complete waste of time. Well, I don't like to say waste of time, because all data, even negative data, is valuable and can be used in the future to try and avoid these types of mistakes. But the experience out on court was not a great one. We didn't play terrible. We had quite a few extended rallies and quite a few shots that I wouldn't usually be able to execute with a less powerful setup. But again, I'm not really looking for flashy shots every now and then. I'm looking for a setup that's going to excel in the conditions that we often find ourselves playing in, which is pretty slow, which is with older balls. We don't change balls every 8 games like the professionals do, so we really need to tailor that setup to a slower court, to these slower balls. There's no point trying to create a setup that's going to play well in just fast conditions with newer balls. That would be a complete mistake and a complete waste of time. So yeah, you can see from a few rallies here, the extra height and length control, they do come in handy when I'm trying to play flatter over the net and trying to get the ball through the court with a little bit of pace. But they're too few and far between. The consistency is a joke in comparison to the Metallics 2. Unacceptable really. And so, like I said, there's a lot of negatives from this setup with the dampener, and I'm going to be honest, there are no positives to report. And that might be a little harsh, but you know, we've been, I think, 6 months into testing setups on this channel now. Could be a little bit more, and so the bar is raised higher than it was half a year ago. And so when I play with a setup that is, you know, average, I'm going to call it rubbish. So when we play with a setup that is good, I'm going to call it adequate. Yeah, that's the stage we're at. So no positives from this test, but a whole lot of negatives. Right, let's move on to this next setup test that I participated in, and I made the change. Obviously I took the dampener off, but I put 4 string savers in the string bed. So they were on the 4th cross string down from the top, on the middle 2 mains cross strings, and then also on the 6th cross string down, and again on the 2 middle main strings. So again, I'm looking for more height and line control, but this time I am expecting a lot less shot speed, because the dampener isn't jamming both the cross strings and the main strings. And for those that don't know, generally less string movement means more power and spin, which means less length control. So yeah, I'm looking for that height and line control from this particular setup without the drastic increase in shot speed. That's going to have a negative effect on our unforced error count. And I'm pleased to report that this was much, much better, far superior. And the thing is, it's an even better test than the previous setup, which was outdoors in slow, cold conditions. This was indoors, where the air is a lot thinner, the ball travels quicker and further. And so you have, all things being equal, less length control from the start, just based on those conditions. So this would be a perfect test, really, to see if the length control is adequate enough for us to continue with this setup, and it absolutely is. It was a massive improvement. My error rate dropped down significantly without too much of a decrease in the line and the height control, which was exactly what I was looking for. It was a very positive experience. And so sometimes you just got to take those negative test results, those disappointments, and try and turn them into something useful. And I'll be honest with you, it doesn't always correct itself this quickly, but it is nice when we're able to improve the setup immediately in the next session. So I'm very pleased about that. Okay, so on reflection, it probably would have been, well, not probably, it would definitely have been a better idea just to start this particular racket test in its stock form with the string bed, like no dampener, no string savers, just to see how it would have performed in its most basic form. But we went with a dampener, and we experienced a dramatic decrease in length control that couldn't be overcome by the increase in height and line control. And I've found that with a lot of setups, to be quite honest. You can get away with not so good height and line control as long as the length control is outstanding. But the other way round, where the length control is not so great but the height and line control is outstanding, that doesn't work as well. But let's be honest, we're looking for both. If we want a setup that's going to take us to the next level, we need both. So we have got to get all these aspects that are important to us on a high level if we're going to improve our level at tennis. So yeah, in the second test, I took the dampener off completely. I added the 4 string savers, and that was just so good. The control over the height and line without sacrificing length control is really one of the best setups I've used so far. And we've got that increase in shot speed and spin to create a heavier ball. That as well is increasing the amount of forced errors we are getting from our opponents. It's increasing the amount of free points we're getting off our serves. And I feel like the second serve is still heavy enough where we're able to start off on enough points in front where we can impose our game, as opposed to trying to defend from a weaker second serve, and that's usually detrimental to our second serve percentage. So yeah, all those aspects that I mentioned contributed to a really positive second test, and we're going to try and take that forward into the next few experiments. In the last setup analysis, I identified that I wanted the option to hit a flatter backhand as well as my stock standard topspin backhand, and I think you can see from some of the rallying points here that I was able to execute that flatter backhand with a lot less effort, thanks to the increase in the twist weight, the static weight, and probably the swing weight, alongside the string savers, giving us more control over the height of the ball. And so all of that in mind, we're able to play lower over the net more consistently with more accuracy and less effort. And of course, on top of that, as I mentioned, we didn't have to sacrifice too much length control. Our unforced error rate was still at a more than acceptable level, so I'm very pleased about that. Right, so that's the setup analysis for the Dunlop Revo Srixon CX 2.0. That is a mouthful. But yeah, that's part one of the setup analysis, and I'm going to do part two indoors again, but with older balls. So I generally find the older balls a lot more difficult to control indoors than a newer set of balls. They just fly further, there's less spin, and of course on top of that there's less height and line control from the ball compressing on your string bit. And yeah, well, we will see how it performs in those conditions that make it even more difficult to hit through our opponents. And if it passes that test, then those are good signs. That's a really good platform that we continue to build on. So if you've made it this far, I want to thank you for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. If you found it interesting, it might be worth checking out the other videos on this channel and staying tuned for future setup analysis that I've got planned coming out soon. So hopefully I'll see you all there, and until then, everyone, take care.